Welcome to the Point of the Mountain State Land Authority Board meeting. Today is Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. We're here in our beautiful state capitol, room 445. I'm Jordan Tesher, co-chair of the Point of the Mountain State Land Authority Board, and here with my co-chair, Lowry Snow. And we have a couple board members online and others that are probably still on their way up here. There's been a really bad accident on I-15 that's delayed a lot of people, but we do have a quorum at this point, and so we're going to go ahead and get started and move forward with our agenda. A lot has happened, as always. Really excited to see the progress of this project and excited to hear from our executive director in a little bit to talk about some of those key steps that we've been able to move forward with over the since we last met a month ago. But before we go there, as we do with all of our meetings, we recognize that this is a public project and that we as a board have a responsibility to ensure that the project reflects the public's values and that we receive broad public input. And so as is custom in all of our board meetings, we allow for any member of the public to come and to comment as long as they follow the procedures that are outlined in the agenda. So if there's anyone in the room that would be interested in presenting public comment, please raise your hand. I don't see anyone in the room. Is there anyone online? Could you raise your virtual hand? Not seen anyway. So we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to the third item of our agenda, which is considering approving the minutes from the August 2025 board meeting. Those minutes were sent out in the board packet. I'll go to Chair Snow for a motion.
Motion to approve said minutes.
All right, the motion is to approve the minutes from the August 13th, 2025 board meeting. Any discussion of that motion? Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second from Director, I'm trying to think what do I call you? Executive Director Moss here. All right, we'll go ahead and place that motion. All those in favor of approving the minutes from August 13, 2025, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. I'll rule that passes unanimously. Move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item number 4, our financial update. We recognize the trust that's been placed by the public to ensure that our funds are appropriated and spent in a manner consistent with our approved budget. And so we'd like to turn some time over to Don Willey, our Director of Operations, to review our current financials with the board and facilitate any board discussion. So Don, the time is yours.
Thank you. Let me get this up on the screen for you. All right. Can you see that okay? That's always a little small. Put the glasses on and all right. Is that a little better? All right. Thank you. We're in the new fiscal year now. We're 2 months in. And so at this point, we should be, as you can see on the top right here, with about 83% of our budget remaining in each of the budget categories. As we go through this, you'll see that we are doing really well at this point of the budget year. A little tighter on our budget as we have been in the past. That was intentional to make sure that we were more closely aligned with our anticipated expenses while still ensuring that we had some buffer room throughout the year. As you can see, the only budget category that we are burning a little high, it comes down here to our tech hardware. That's on our budget line 92, data processing hardware. And that's just because we purchased a machine for Jen, a new member of our staff, and that will equalize over the course of a year, right? So we're front loading that expense in the fiscal year. It'll equalize as we go throughout the year. So at this point, we are confident with where we're at on our burn rate. Overall, we're at 98%, so we have the majority of our budget left for the entire year, but we will see those expenses increase with we're about a month lag on all of our invoices for our consultants. And so we'll start to recognize those expenses starting this month, but next month as well. So at this point, the budget is looking very healthy. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you for that report, Don. Any discussion or questions from the board? I'm not seeing any. Thank you for that presentation. We'll move on to the fifth item on our agenda. Or excuse me, do we need a motion to approve the August?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
got that.
I'll go to Executive Director Moss for that motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, the motion is to approve the August financial report as presented to the board. Any discussion or second from Executive or Co-Chair Larry Snow, and any discussion of that motion? Seeing none, I'll place the motion. All those in favor of approving the August financial report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I'll roll that passes unanimously. Thanks again, Don. All right, well, we've got to the best part of our agenda, and that is the chance that we have to hear from our Executive Director, Michael Ambray, to give us an update. We know that there's been a lot of progress on the backbone infrastructure and in talking to different potential tenants on the side, et cetera. So love to turn some time over to you to provide a director's report.
Perfect. Thank you, Co-Chair Tusher. On-site work is progressing nicely. I have some good news to report that the water tank and the transmission lines and bridge structure are all out for bid, and we will have bids back mid to late October. And with that, we'll really have a better understanding of where we sit with the $165 million revolving loan fund. The PID board met and reviewed 50% schematic design for the event venue, so that's progressing nicely. We are expecting full completed construction documents for the promenade and kiosk structures in the next few weeks. I'm very proud to announce that Draper's interlocal agreement is finalized and will be presented to Draper City Council Tuesday, September 16th for approval, along with the third-party agreement for the engineering consultant. That's also finalized and will be presented in that council meeting. And as soon as the city council approves those documents, we will then execute the agreement between Jordan Valley Water District and Draper and Palmsla to reassign water shares so we can be supported with water long-term. Palmsla has also finalized a contract with Parson Bailey Latimer. And today I would like to introduce Lauren Reber. She's with us today. She's our new legal counsel. Unfortunately, Kerry Owens had a prior obligation, but you will meet him in the future. We are making good progress with advancing the 50-acre for-sale product. Palmsla will take a two-stage approach. First, advertising for a statement of qualifications, establishing a short list, and then we'll follow that with an RFP and go through a formal process. And I just want to make clear that we will bring those documents to the board for approval, red line comments prior to advertising. I continue to have various conversations regarding the transfer of title from DFCM to Palmsla. I'll report back when I have further conversations regarding that. And finally, I'd like to update everybody on a lot of effort that's been put into understanding various levies on this site, including transportation, smart city technologies, and a master association that would take care of landscaping. Trying to understand the financial obligation for Palmsla moving forward is extremely helpful to understand not only upfront capital that we need, but also operating funds moving forward. So with that, that's kind of where we're at.
Great. Any discussion or questions from board members? All right. I think we can move on. Thank you for that great report. Appreciate the good work that you and your team are putting in. I know a lot of those items, they sound like quick ticks off, but have been, months of hard work and really yeoman's work and getting, especially the agreement with Draper.
Right,
I'm so
yeah.
excited to hear about.
Hey, hold
that.
on, that's been quick. That's been easy to do. It's like quickest thing on his agenda.
It's not what I've heard, Mayor Walker. So thank you. Thank you for the great work that
Thank
you're
you,
doing
Co-Chair.
and for that update. We'll move to the next item on our agenda, number 6, which is the ground lease review notice for H5A and consideration of resolution 2025-07. And so in accordance with the disposition and development agreement that was signed between Palmsla and the Point Partners, we have received the first ground lease review notice, and that's for parcel H5A. Now, the DDA requires a review of the ground lease notice in advance of the final ground lease approval, which we expect to occur at a future board meeting. But we have a chance now to review that notice and have any questions that the board has or discussions before entertaining a motion to adopt the resolution that's been prepared and that was in your board packet. So let me turn some time over back to our executive director, Ambre, to review this notice.
I've actually asked Nick Dirksen, a staff member, to go ahead and review that with the board.
Thank you for the overview. This is, of course, a notice. It's kind of this is our first one to kind of explain. This is like a heads up. This is where we're at this point in our design. That is TPP. This is what we anticipate and kind of where we think the lease would be. This is not the ground lease itself. That's a separate, obviously, document that'll have a lot of information. But this gives us a pretty good snapshot midterm here of where we're at on the lease side as this building is developed. Just for some overview, the building is 350 units of, it's mixed use, 350 units of residential, about 46,000 square feet of ground floor retail. It physically is a long building with a parking structure. It fronts the promenade. It'll be at one of the main storefronts along the promenade. They have gone through, I don't know, you're through, how far in design are you? 50? Yeah, so they're at about 50%, a little more development review or design review. The actual lease that they're proposing, at least at this point, is a 99-year lease. They are, which is really important in the DDA, they are offering a rent at the threshold value, which in the end is actually going to be, probably have the building be a little bit less. I mean, they'll have to come up with some additional money to make that lease work. There is a proposal to do a prepayment. This is not unusual, but it is something that we will discuss further. But there's a proposal to do a prepayment on the lease to provide a roughly $4 million on the front end to Palmsla, and then that would help obviously us in some respects when it comes to monetizing some infrastructure. But it also helps them in terms of the way the leasing structure works for them later. But there's some trade-offs with that, and that'll be a further discussion. So the project has been through concept review. It has not gone through schematic review at this point, but so far the project has met all of our design requirements. It is meeting all of our infrastructure requirements. The schedule is that it would start in April, construction this coming spring, 30 months to build, which puts it opening or COO sometime in October of 2028. There are substantial, I noted in the staff report, substantial dollars being spent on sustainability and those compliance requirements. I really appreciate that TPP is trying to set a standard with the first building with some of those guidelines. And I think that's important as we set precedent for the rest of the project. We would recommend approval of this notice as staff pending final confirmation of the parcel dimensions. As you know, we still have to go through a platting process. We are going to require that they show us the sustainability compliance as part of the final. And then we also recognize that there'll still be some tweaking in the design to be done. So some of the numbers that you see in there in terms of values and square footage and so forth, they could alter as they get through to construction design. But we recognize that at this stage. One other thing to note is that it is the first building, but it's also the first building in the priority zone. So again, this building is a very complicated building, but I think it's done a very good job of setting the precedent of what we expect the point to be. So are there any questions?
Nick, could you just take a second and walk us through the timeline between now and approval of that ground lease?
Yeah, at this point, there's about 60 days that we go through and design and other kinds of processes where we finalize the site plan and finalize the site itself. That's again, the idea of the surveying and the platting. And from there, we're able to, in the midst of that, put together the ground lease itself because we have those details. So we're a couple of months at least. But this one's really quite straightforward. So.
Executive Director.
Yeah, a couple of things. So the terms are these. We have, Palmsville has 60 days when TPP issues the ground lease review. And so that's what we're approving today, hopefully. When we approve that, the clock starts for 120 days for TPP to then establish a ground lease. And then we have 60 days after that to approve it and then to start construction.
Right.
And then
they're like 60-day windows. Yeah.
For my understanding, what we're approving today is essentially that we have received all of the required documents from the point partners that were required under the DDA, and that they have come in at the threshold price. So there is a separate process if they were to come in under threshold that we could possibly go down. But
Yes.
because they've come at the threshold price, there's no additional
Yes.
due
If they-
diligence.
If they
necessary.
came in under the threshold, the DDA provides for us to do additional reviews and analysis to verify their costs and other things that bring it below that. It provides a lot of time for us to go through that process. If you recall, when we walked through that last board meeting, we walked through that flow chart. If you meet threshold, you jump from up here down to here on there because we know we can begin negotiating the ground lease itself, and they know they can move forward with the design. But you're right, Representative, this is, do they meet the requirements of the notice? We say they have as staff. We recommend approval and moving forward. So.
Can I just make one more
Please.
note? In the DDA, it was contemplated that part of this review, you would have an energy model and a list of sustainability factors. We kind of, as going through the process, we recognize that we're a little premature in those efforts. We're not far enough through design to really do an energy model and to understand the offsets on sustainability. So we've agreed with TPP that those will be a future submittal.
If you notice, that was in the recommendations in the staff report that we would deal with that issue. So.
And that is reflected in the resolution that's been proposed.
Correct. Yeah. Hard to answer a question when you haven't done the engineering yet. That's what it
Yeah,
amounts to. So.
That makes sense. Well, before we go to the resolution discussion, let's see if there's any questions from board members or discussion that could go to Nick or to Michael. All right, I'm not seeing any. So I think now would be an appropriate time for a motion to approve the resolution. We'll go to Chair Snow.
Thank you. It would be my motion that we approve the ground lease review notice for the H5A parcel. And it is contained and written in resolution 2025-07, 2025-07. Mr. Chair, you can ask for a second, but I'd like to make a brief comment in support, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get a second first. Okay, Senator Stevenson with a second. Go ahead.
The development agreement that this issues from, so to speak, there were many, many weeks, if not months, I think, that went into the drafting of that document. One of the provisions that a great amount of time was spent with was this process that we're in right now, which ultimately leads to, we believe, an actual lease. We are not approving a lease today. We're not approving lease terms. What we're approving is the first stage of the process. And it's a fairly lengthy process. The idea and the concept is that it's carefully approached, carefully done to make certain that the interests of the state and the pumps that are looked out for. So with that, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the board considering my motion.
Thank you, Chair Snow. So the motion is that we approve the resolution 2025-07. Any discussion of that motion? Seeing none, I just want to make a comment. I think it's in line with what Chair Snow was saying. We took a fair amount of time, some of this before I even was on the board, in putting together the development agreement. And there was a little bit of, some comments around, why is it taking so long? Why can't we get this thing done? And I think what we've seen today is just evidence of, because we put in that work beforehand to ensure that we have a very clear process, that it's streamlined, that everyone understands the terms, it allows for these types of decisions as they come to us to run much smoother. So I appreciate all the great work that went into putting that development agreement together in the first place, and really excited about really the first building that we have that's starting through that process. So kudos to everyone. As has been our custom, I'll go ahead and read the resolution and then we'll take a vote. So the resolution is approving ground lease review notice for H5A Resolution 2025-07, whereas consistent with Utah Code annotated 11-59-202-16, the Point of the Mountain State Land Authority is authorized to enter into a development agreement for some or all of the Point of the Mountain State land as defined in Utah Code annotated 11-59-1026, whereas consistent with Utah Code annotated 11-59-202-16, the Land Authority entered into that certain disposition and development agreement dated November 27th, 2023 with CLW Point Partners LLC as developer, whereas in accordance with section 3.4.4 of the DDA, developer formally submitted the H5A ground lease review notice to Land Authority, whereas the board of the Point of the Mountain State Land Authority has determined that the review notice complies with the requirements of the DDA, subject to certain Point of the Mountain State Land Authority staff recommendations. Now, therefore, the Land Authority Board, by the authority vested to it by the laws of the state of Utah, does hereby resolve the following. 1, the Land Authority Board hereby approves the review notice subject to the following recommendations made by the Point of the Mountain State Land Authority staff. A, final confirmation of parcel dimensions through survey and or platting prior to execution of lease. B, completion of sustainability compliance analysis and submission of any required exception requests at building permit stage. And C, continued updates on identification of capital partners and retail tenants in witness thereof. I certified that the Point of the Mountain State Land Authority did approve, it passes resolution on this day, then it'd be signed by one of the co-chairs. So I'll place that motion. All those in favor of approving this resolution as has been stated, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. I'll rule that passes unanimously. All right, moving to the next item on our agenda, which is item number 7, Robert Charles Lesser and Company contract renewal. And so as many of you know, the Land Authority has employed the expertise of several widely recognized firms in support of the complex planning activities of the point. One of those is the Robert Charles Lesser Company, or RCLCO, and they've been a critical partner on this project over the last 5 years. And so we will entertain a proposal today to extend their contract. We have Don Willey, our Director of Operations. They're ready to give us some background on this, and then we'll facilitate some board discussion. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Chair Tasher. We're pleased to present this recommendation to the board. As you know, RCLCO has been with us from the very beginning. So they were part of the original team to help in planning and moving this project forward. They've been an invaluable part of that team. And so we would recommend continuing that contract. Our current contract with them does allow for an additional 5-year extension on top of the initial 5-year term. We would recommend just adjusting the budget down a little bit Originally, the total contract amount was 1.4 million for the 5 years. We're recommending 200,000, just given the point of the project that we're at, that we'll still need them, but maybe not as much in-depth research analysis as they've provided in the past. We're recommending a 5-year extension at the rate of 200,000 per year, so $1 million for that 5-year period. The scope of work will remain the same. That would include analyzing the market and conducting financial modeling to recommend the highest and best use of the site as a basis for site planning and design, develop a strategy to optimize economic and social return to Utah residents, advise POMSA regarding the state of Utah optimal role in the site development, including when and how POMSA should engage private development partners and the appropriate deal structure with those partners, advising POMSA on strategies to finance needed infrastructure and other project elements, provide ongoing advice to POMSA during planning and development on matters such as transit-oriented development strategies, workforce housing development, anchor institution recruitment, open space planning and financing, creation of an innovation district and economic development, helping recruit and evaluate planning, financing, and development partners, assess the fiscal and economic impact of the development, provide periodic presentations to stakeholders, and any other associated services outlined by the contractor. So we would recommend continuing that scope of work moving forward. Still plenty to develop on the site, plenty of years ahead of us, and we found them to be an incredibly valuable resource to the POMSA team.
Thank you, Don. Any questions or discussion from the board? Seeing none, if I understand right, you're looking for a motion for the board to adopt your recommendation of extending the contract for an additional 5 years with the cap of $200,000 annually of that contract. Is there someone that'd be willing to make that motion?
So move, Mr. Chair.
All right, that motion was made by Mayor Wilson. Is there a second? Second from Executive Director Moss. So the motion before the board is to adopt the recommendations with an approved contract budget up to $200,000 annually for 5 years. See no discussion of that motion, I'll place it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. I'll roll that passes unanimously. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 8 on our agenda, which is the Public Art Advisory Committee creation. And this is tied to Resolution 2025-08. Earlier this year, the Land Authority Board received a presentation from Designing Local. I think you guys will remember that, that regarded some recommendations for the Points Public Art Master Plan. We really appreciated their presentation and the work that they put in. And one of their recommendations was to create a public art advisory committee to aid in the procurement, maintenance, and disposal of public art at the Point. And so I'd like to turn some time over to Don to review that recommendation, what we're looking for, and then we can facilitate a board discussion. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Chair Tusher. Again, we're thrilled to have Designing Local as part of our team of consultants that was supporting us. They did a phenomenal job in preparing recommendations, outlining the public art master plan. As we just heard, we're progressing with vertical construction with H5A and more to come in the future. It's time for us to form a public art committee that can help shepherd public art moving forward. So in April, that was one of the recommendations that came from Designing Local, and we'd like to move forward with assembling that committee. That committee in the recommendation includes the following areas of representation: 1 member from Point of the Mountain State Land Authority, 1 member from the Point Partners, an architect or interior designer, a landscape architect, urban designer, or urban planner, a professional in the field of art, an art or architectural historian or art educator, and an artist as the 7th. They recommend that we have up to 7 individuals, but no less than 5 members. The recommendation would be for the board to create the committee and designate authority to the executive director to appoint members of that committee. So that way we can, as folks maybe come on and come off the board, it doesn't, or on the committee, it doesn't have to come back to the board for approving each of those individual positions. So just more of a matter of administrative ease is what we're requesting. And again, just to remind you of the purpose of this committee and public art, they would be really overseeing the procurement, placement, and disposition of public art at the point. So ultimately, the percent for public art that would be generated with each vertical building on the site, that will go into a fund, and the public art committee would determine how to expend those funds and then manage the use or the placement and the disposition of public art on the site into perpetuity.
Thank you, Don. One question I have, and this maybe could go to you, Don, or to you, Michael, is when making those appointments, what process are you going to follow to decide who fills each of those positions? Are you going to accept applications and review that, or what's the thought that's gone into that?
Yeah, I think that we would lean on our colleagues in the state. We have access, of course, to the Division of Museums. We have the Department of, I forget the name now, it's changed a few times, Culture, CC, yeah. When I worked for UServe Utah, it was a different name, so I apologize. We have tremendous professionals in the state, and so we would lean on those professionals to assist us in providing recommendations. Of course, coming to the board for recommendations as well. We would lean on that seat that is to be fulfilled by TPP. We would let them choose who from their team they would like to have the executive director appoint. But we would lean on those who are smarter than us. We don't necessarily anticipate an application process, but more so going to the experts that we know and asking for recommendations. From those recommendations, identifying who we feel would be the best fit to serve on this committee and represent the values and the intent of the legislature that we all conduct our work underneath.
Executive Director Moss.
Yeah, I had a question and a comment afterwards. So in terms of the actual approval of anything that they want to spend those dollars on, would that still come back to this board for approval, or would they have the discretion to be able to make those decisions?
The committee would have discretion to make those decisions. The board can obviously place limits on that as well, right? So if the board wanted to create a threshold for that public art, say something over $500,000, and again, we're years away from actually procuring that art for placement on the site. Initially, this is now convening for planning purposes and start mapping out. But the board could create a threshold and say the committee could approve up to a certain amount. And then if it was above that, just like procurement, it could come back to the board for that.
And I guess I just, the follow-up. My just question is, I think it'd be helpful for us to at least see before there is an approval made. That being said, my comment was just, I actually think this is really critical. When you go around the world, I've been to a number of destinations, and those that have figured out how to incorporate art, it does create a very different dynamic. And a lot of what we're trying to create about this place is a place of innovation, collaboration, all the things that I love to talk about. But having that art throughout that, I think, one, it highlights hopefully great things that are happening, people from in the state. I'm hoping we see a lot of our local artists being, integrated into that. But I do think it will set it apart as a very unique development relative to, a traditional, normal development, right? I think this will add a lot of color and excitement around the purpose of this project. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we celebrate the arts in Utah. I mean, we have deep history from our origin, our pioneer days of our celebrating arts and community. And so we see that. And again, the board can, we could say initially not providing that authority to this committee, right? This could be a planning committee initially. And as we're ready to move through the procurement process, we can take that up at that time.
Sorry, one last just comment on that. I don't know if I necessarily, I don't think I wouldn't put myself in a position to judging what is the best art. I just think there's maybe some sensitivities that we want to make sure that we're being careful of, but at least there's some opportunity to weigh in on. But I'm not necessarily saying we have to approve. I like having some discretion, but still giving an opportunity to give some feedback.
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
Jefferson Moss, sorry, Executive Director Moss. So let us go back and kind of outline a process. Because I think you bring up a valid point, right? The board needs some information and some level of approval, but what does that look like? We haven't thought through that. So let us come back to the board with an idea.
Mayor Wilson.
Thank you. I was just going to build on that comment. I think that there's a couple of things. One is the process. We're going through at Salt Lake County this discussion right now on this very issue as it relates to the downtown development. We've retained an architect to design the modified salt palace, working with SCG, et cetera. And it struck me how I was actually quite surprised that our public art committee will be formed right away, because some major installations will impact the functionality of the center. In this case, road alignment. I'm not suggesting we want a whale like Salt Lake City has a 9th and 9th, but a circular would maybe want a beautiful public art display. So the structure for the major installations, sometimes water features need to have, when that infrastructure is placed. So I think the idea of doing this right early is really important. In addition to the selection of the individuals, I think defining that process is really important. And I would love, why hire externally when you can do it internally? And I would trust the state's folks. So I think my recommendation builds off of what the executive director just says, that maybe they come back to us with, how many members, what are we doing? And then also that process. And then I think integration with the developer is really key as well. And I support today's action.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. Chair Snow.
I second all the comments been made, but I also am listening to Director Moss, Representative Moss, the way I remember him, makes me realize that we need to give some, I think will be important that we give this committee some guidelines of what we're looking for, particularly on themes, rather than simply turning them loose. And I don't know at what point those themes will be discussed or that will be laid out, but I think the committee will appreciate that, but I also think that it will help them focus their efforts. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair Snow. Senator Stevenson.
Thank you very much. I came in, I apologize for being late. But as I came in, we were talking about the other resolution, and we talked a little bit about the slowness we've had of putting this together. And one thing I am a little concerned about, and I hope I realize we've got the startup blues here and to get this thing going. But, one of the things that would cause this project to almost become cumbersome and slow it down, we don't want to do that. We want this project to move forward quickly. And we want to make sure that the intent of the land use authority is so we can move it quickly and not get really so caught up in the bureaucracy of government. And we've done all the planning. Thanks to the folks we had housed there, we had a lot of time to plan this project and do it the right way. And so as we start going through this building process, I would hope that we don't get caught up in a situation to where there's so many approvals and so many backup approvals that it turns into, it's kind of like maybe we just should have left it where it was or divided it up and gone a direction. Now, the art process is important, but it should never take a long time to prove that. If we can put these experts together, they ought to be able to make a decision. And I hope we're not leading ourselves into a situation here to where it's going to take a long time to build a project, get it approved, and take it to completion. In the world that the people we're going to ask to do this, time is money. And we need to make sure that they're able to move quickly and efficiently and with the willingness of the board, certainly. But that's the reason we put this together the way that we have. So let's not get let's not get caught up in an approval process. It's going to take a lot longer than it should. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Stevenson. I was just going to add, I agree with all the comments that have been made. I think it's valuable to point out that we're calling this an advisory committee. And so as you come up with those rules, I think that's the spirit in which we're looking for. We do want to get experts together to come back and use that expertise to develop really great and creative ideas. But ultimately, they're here to advise the board and ensure that as we make those decisions, that they're in alignment with what the state wants for this project. And so that the other just recommendation that I would have is, as you select these individuals, the more local you can get, I think the better off we're going to be. There's some great residents in Draper, South Jordan, kind of the west end of the valley, Bluffdale, Riverton, et cetera, that have these expertise. And I think that would be better than trying to pick people from, other corners of the state or even outside of the state to come up with what that should look like. So that's my suggestion. One question I have, and it sounds like Mayor Wilson's okay advancing this resolution. Is there any urgency? I mean, would it be better to wait for some of those structural things in place before moving forward with this resolution? Or would it be helpful to move forward with the resolution and then we can get some of that structure later on?
Given that it is an advisory committee, I would recommend that we move forward with being able to assemble the committee. I think it would be helpful for that committee to assist in identifying some themes, right? Again, we definitely have the intent to get as local as possible with these individuals. For us, as we come back to this is a Utah project, right? As we're talking about signage, we're talking about brand and everything. We come back to how does this reflect Utah values, our history, our culture, the iconic elements that have made us so great. We would expect that, these individuals reflect those same values. So I think it'd be good to actually ask them to bring those ideas to us, being those in the art community or more creative personalities, to be able to help us identify what those themes may be. And then we bring that to the board and present that for consideration.
Director Moss.
Yeah, and I'll just echo, I actually am good with moving forward with it. Again, making the point that I think it's helpful for us to give them some guidelines, make sure there's some kind of discretion. I still think it's helpful for us to get a chance to see along the way. But to Senator Stevens' point, I don't want to slow it down. We need to move fast, but just, I think we can build on what we have here and still accomplish that. So.
Go ahead, Senator.
Just one sentence. Just remember that a camel is a racehorse that was put together by a large committee.
We're not artists. So.
With that in mind, Director Moss, do you want to make a motion then?
I would be happy to make a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution 2025-08, creating the Points Public Arts Advisory Committee.
Can I get a second?
I would second.
Second from Senator Stevenson. All right, so the motion before us is to approve resolution 2025-08. Any discussion of that motion? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and read the resolution. This is creating the Points Public Arts Advisory Committee, resolution 2025-08. Whereas consistent with Utah Code annotated 11-59-2022, the Point of the Mountain State Land Authority is authorized to engage a consultant to undertake any study, effort, or activity the board considers appropriate to assist or inform the board about any aspect of the proposed development of the Point of the Mountain State Land. Whereas consistent with Utah Code annotated 11-59-2022, the Land Authority hired Design Local to create a public arts plan for the Point of the Mountain. And whereas in April of 2025, the board of the Point of the Mountain State Land Authority was presented the Point of the Mountain Public Art Plan. Whereas the Land Authority has determined that consistent with its duties and responsibilities outlined in Utah Code annotated 11-59-203, it is in the best interest of the Land Authority and the state of Utah to create an advisory committee to carry out and implement the Point of the Mountain Public Art Plan. Now, therefore, the Land Authority Board, by the authority vested to it by the laws of the state of Utah, does hereby resolve the following. 1, the Land Authority Board hereby creates the Point Public Art Advisory Committee and hereby delegates authority to the Executive Director of the Land Authority to appoint the members of the committee in accordance with the Point of the Mountain Public Art Plan. I'll place the motion. All those in favor of approving this resolution, say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed, say nay.
Aye.
I'll rule that passes unanimously. Thank you. I think that completes our agenda for today. I don't think there's anything that we need to do in executive session. Are there any other items that a member of the board would like to address before we adjourn?
I do have a quick question on the previous, and it didn't change my thoughts on where we would go on this, but are we retaining the firm? I missed that part of the presentation if it was mentioned. Or are we now moving solely to the state team to work going forward along with the executive team?
Let me hand that over to our director to answer.
Mayor Wilson, the answer is no, we are not going to retain Designing Local. We will move forward with this committee.
And the staffing will be through the state office. You mentioned that, or?
Yeah, we will lean on them for applicants or suggestions, but we will form this committee. And it won't be just made up of state employees by any means.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else that we need to address? Okay. So I'm just looking at this. Our next board meeting will be October 8th, same time, same place. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Motion to adjourn by Chair Snow. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mayor Wilson. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.